Good morning. Barry Bryson here, thanking you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark, and we're in Mark chapter 8. We're going to read just 5 short verses, verses 22 through 26, but they contain so much. As I said yesterday, we're continuing on this section where things are just so stressful and burdensome to Jesus. His disciples don't understand the simplest things he tries to teach them. His opponents, have just become, stinging insects, just mosquitoes in his ear surrounding him all the time. And so many people need him and paw at him. Twice in the last few verses, he has sighed deeply in his spirit. He has groaned under the weight of it. Chapter 7, verse 34, and chapter 8, verse 12. And so we come to this curious episode that's not like any other. It's the only time it's recorded in the Gospels as the parallel healing that had just taken place in the last chapter, the healing of the deaf man. So many similarities, and they're both unique to Mark's Gospel. And this is so brief, but it's such a puzzlement, and a lot of people have tried to figure out what this is about. And I think we know what it's about, although it's uncomfortable to think what it's about. Perhaps. Let's read the verses. They came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and entreated him to touch him. They kept asking him to touch him. And taking the blind man by the hand, he brought him outside the village, and after spitting on his eyes and laying his hands upon him, he asked, "Do you see anything?" And he looked up and said, "I see men, but I see them like trees walking around." Then again he laid his hands upon his eyes and looked intently and was restored. And he began to see everything clearly. And he sent him to his home, saying, "Don't enter the village." So many questions here. He goes to Bethsaida. Bethsaida is the fishing village near Capernaum, and it's where Peter, Andrew, James, and John are from. And he spends a lot of time there. And when he's back in Bethsaida, they bring him a blind man, and they keep begging him to touch the man's eyes. Why they insist upon Jesus touching him, I don't know, but Jesus does touch him to heal him. He doesn't have to, of course, but he does. So many parallels to the healing of the deaf man in chapter 7. In the first place, they're brought by a third party or by a group. People are begging him to heal this man. Jesus takes the man physically and moves him away from the crowd in both instances. And Jesus does something unique to heal this person. With the deaf man, he put his fingers in his ears and touched his tongue, speaking sign language really to explain to him what he was about to do. And with the blind man, he takes him by the hand to lead him out and immediately starts working on his eyes. The blind man, of course, heard what was about to happen, and so he didn't need that explanation, but they're quite parallel. Remember that with the healing of the deaf man in chapter 7, Jesus looked up into heaven and he groaned, and he said, "Ephrathah," and we had that. There's two things that made it unique, There was the expression of his weakness, and there was also his speaking in Aramaic, the very word that he used. So here, this is just a singularity among all the miracle stories in the life of Jesus. So Jesus spits on his eyes. Why did he do that? I don't know. And then he laid hands on him, on his head or on his eyes, I don't know, or on his shoulders, I don't know. And then Jesus said, "Do you see anything?" Why would Jesus ask that? Why was he wondering? I mean, it's like when you're at the doctor and he says, "Do you feel this? Do you feel this? Do you feel this? Do you feel this?" And you say, "Yes, yes, yes." "Oh, that's where it hurts." It's almost like it's diagnostic. like he doesn't know for sure. He says, do you see anything? He doesn't ever ask anybody that ever before or after. You know, your servant is healed. And the guy rides away 40 miles and finds out that his servant has been healed at that very moment. That's the way Jesus has performed miracles in the past. But here he's saying, do you see anything? And then the guy says, yeah, he said, I see men, but they're moving around like trees. So his vision isn't fully restored. Tells us the man wasn't born blind because the man knows what he can describe what he does see in terms of something visual, men walking around like trees. So he's lost his sight somewhere later in life. So anyway, so then Jesus has to do it again and puts his hands on his eyes, and then the guy looks into the distance. That's literally what it says. He looks through. He looks into the distance, and he can see clearly, and his sight was fully restored. And Jesus says, don't go into the village. So many questions. Why did it take Jesus 2 attempts? There are some easy answers. I don't know that they're the right answer. John Calvin, in his comments on this passage, said that Jesus healed in a variety of ways to show that he could, to show that he could do it however way he wanted to, that he didn't have to do it a certain way. I agree that Jesus could heal any way he wanted to, which means when he heals in a certain way that's different from all the others, we should take note because it happens for a reason, not because Jesus is limited to this way. But I don't agree that that's why Jesus did this. I mean, I don't see that that's the point in this story. I don't see how it applies in any way to this story. Some people don't see it as a miracle that happens in 2 steps. They see Jesus as cleaning his eyes and then getting a diagnostic. What's your vision like? Okay, well, I can see a little bit, but I see men moving around like trees. And then Jesus says, okay, now I know what I'm fixing, I'll fix it. Maybe that's what's being described. I mean, you have to kind of use your imagination to see that that's what's being described, and it still begs the question, how did Jesus not know? Or it could be that things have gotten difficult in every possible way for Jesus. And having already read the passages of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, we know that he is taxed to the point of breaking. And if he weren't, where would be the obedience? And how could he be qualified to be our high priest and to be tested in every way we are? We don't like to think that it took Jesus 2 tries to fully restore this man to eyesight. But I don't know what else we're left with in this text other than that. I just don't. But he did restore the man's eyesight. It's not like he was in any way limited. His power was limited. I'm saying that in his person, it seems to me that he is so weary at this point that it takes an extra effort for him to do this. We've already been told that when he heals someone, he can feel the power going out of him. So we know there's a drain. That was in the raising of Jairus' daughter and the healing of the woman with the hemorrhage. I just don't know any other way to describe this. Okay, well, you don't have to agree with me. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes. We'll pick up with verse 27 next time.